Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Radiodays Asia 2023. My name is Ryan.
And I'm Steve Ahern.
Yes, feel free to give yourselves a round of applause, of course.
So glad to have you here. What a fantastic full room. I'm Steve Ahern. I'm from Australia. I'm one of the organisers of this conference. I work at ABC Radio in Sydney, also at Radio Info Asia. And Ryan here, my friend, you probably hear him on the radio at Fly FM.
Yes, I work for, in case for the uninitiated, my name is Ryan. I work for Fly FM here, right here in Malaysia. But more importantly, we want to say thank you very much for spending your morning here with us. For people that have traveled all over the world to be here, welcome to Malaysia. Welcome back to Malaysia, of course. Yes, to my fellow Malaysians, thank you very much for braving the terrible KL traffic to be here today. I feel you, but the most important thing is you're here for a good reason. That reason, ladies and gents, as we know, is Radiodays Asia 2023. Please give yourselves one more big round of applause, everyone, for being here. Yes. By the way, Steve, as we keep mentioning, so many people from around the world here today. We've got people from America, Sweden, Australia, and of course, Malaysia.
Huge amount of people. In fact, so you've mentioned a few. I wonder who else is here and where they're from. So, okay, everybody. When I count to three, I want you to tell me where you're from in your loudest voice. Shout out the country you're from. Okay, are you ready? Where are you from? 1, 2, 3. Australia!
Sounded
more
like
Australians, I think.
I don't know about that, Steve. Let's do it one more time, but Malaysians. Do me a favor and shout Malaysia a little bit hard. 3, 2, 1. That's what I like to hear. That is what I like to hear.
Yeah, I think of Malaysians. Yeah, okay. Let's hear some music.
Yes, we're going to hear some music, of course. I think what better way to usher in the Malaysian vibes for all our visitors here in Malaysia with some traditional cultural Malaysian music. Known, of course, to be some of the best Malaysian cultural traditional instrumentations in the country. We've got the sitar, we've got the sape from my hometown of my home state of Sarawak. Can I get a fist bump, my man? Ladies and gentlemen, please give a big round of applause to our only performance for today, Naungan, everyone.
Monitors, please, for everyone.
Hey, hey! Hey, hey! Hey, hey! Hey, hey!
rasa sayang he, rasa sayang sayang he, he lihat nona jauh, rasa sayang sayang he, rasa sayang he, rasa sayang sayang he, he lihat nona jauh, rasa sayang sayang he. Rasa sayang sayang he, he lihat nona jauh, rasa sayang sayang he, rasa sayang he, rasa sayang sayang he, he lihat nona jauh, rasa sayang sayang he. Thank you. We are Naungan.
Let's hear it one more time for Naungan, everyone. Amazing stuff. I want to make a quick shout out to each and every one of the members of Naungan. Of course, we have Alex on the ukulele and the zhongruan. We have Yiman on the gucheng. Anderson, my boy Anderson on the sape from Sarawak, I believe. Vic playing the tabla as well as the percussions, and of course Amir playing the Rabana Asli and Kompang as well. Thank you very much. One more time for Naungan, everyone. We loved it. We enjoyed it.
What a great way to start. Fantastic, great way to start. Test 1, 2, I'm on. We would like to thank some of the organisations who have supported Radio Days and made this conference here in Malaysia possible. RCS and Radio Player, major sponsors. Also the Malaysian government's tourism body, MySeb, Malaysia Airlines, and our exhibitors outside. Go and visit them during your time here, and also Radio Info. We were talking before, Ryan, you were observing that podcast is a new word on the slide this year.
I mean, this is my first Radio Days Asia, by the way, but I've noticed podcast being on the banner for the very first time. Why do you think that is, Steve?
I think it reflects that the radio industry is continuing to evolve. We know that our craft is audio. We know that live broadcast radio has been the backbone of our business for almost 100 years. But now there's new things, and podcasts are one of them. It's a sign, I think, that the audio industry is continuing to evolve and lead.
Exactly. I mean, I shouldn't really be saying this, Steve, because my bosses are in the building.
Yeah, just between you and me.
I work on radio. I do tend to listen to a bit more podcasts than I do radio. I'm just putting it out there. It does happen to some of us these days, isn't it? But regardless of it, each one of those segments, radio, audio, podcast, the one thing we love about it is the content that comes with it. And that's what we're here today sharing with our industry peers. I am as honored as I am happy as I am, I'm going to be honest, over-caffeinated from all the coffee this morning to be sharing the stage with you, Steve, and to be with my radio industry peers here, not just to rub shoulders with you, but hopefully learn a thing from you, because that's what today is all about, brainstorming and just sharing of ideas.
There's a whole lot of fantastic sessions. I'm looking forward to, a bit later this morning, hearing from my friend Valerie. I saw her in there. We've also got...
feel free to give a round of applause,
Valerie. Yes. Tomorrow in the podcast track will be the announcement of the Radio Info Podcast Awards for Asia. We'll hear from two of the winners of that. That's a track hosted by James Cridlin tomorrow, focusing on podcasting. We also have someone from radio in Ukraine with us this year as well. Pretty difficult to get out of that country at the moment, but they've made it to Asia. There's some of the things I'm looking forward to. What about you?
I mean, it's difficult because there's so much to look forward to, but I will say AI is such an exciting thing today that exists not just in radio but around the world, but it's been integrated into Malaysian radio. I can say that the radio station that I work for has become the first radio station in Malaysia to introduce AI. We are the first
I saw a story about that on Radio Info.
Yeah, we are the first Malaysian radio station to have the first Malaysian radio announcer. And although I should be proud, Steve, I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit threatened as well. I mean, what if this AI sounds better than us?
We'll find out more about that.
Yes.
Okay, words and music, really important parts of what we do in our business. We've heard the music. Now, in a moment, we're going to hear the words. We're going to hear from Malaysia's Deputy Minister for Communication and Digital, the Honourable Teo Ching. She's a lawyer by training. She was elected to Parliament in 2008 and at the time was the youngest MP in the Parliament. She's since been re-elected twice. She served as Minister for Education and now she holds the portfolio of Communications and Digital. Please welcome Deputy Communications Minister YB Teo Ching. Hello, Minister.
Thank you to the MCs for the long introductions. Thank you very much. Mr. Anders Held, Project Director and Founder of Radiodays Asia and Radiodays Europe. Mr. Nazri Noran, President of Commercial Radio Malaysia. Mr. Olya, Head of Radio and Asia Pacific Broadcasting Union. Ms. Niswani Binti Awang, Assistant Manager of Trax FM RTM. Mr. Harry Locke, Editor Public Media Alliance. Mr. Baru Rizal Baharudin, General Manager of Royal Chulan Kuala Lumpur. Distinguished guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning. Salam Malaysia Madani and also Salam Perpaduan. I wish all of you a warm welcome to Kuala Lumpur and of course to Malaysia. This is a pleasure to see so many radio and podcast professionals gathered here in Malaysia for the 4th edition of Radiodays Asia in Kuala Lumpur, involving more than 30 countries. Since 2019, Radiodays Asia is the meeting point for those who want to further understand the challenge of today and tomorrow for radio audio podcasting. We are all here to share and learn about radio, audio, and podcasting, and to ponder the possibilities the future has in store for these mediums. Malaysian listeners are no different to their international counterparts. We are engaged and loyal to our favorite radio stations that keep us company, especially on the road. In this era of fake news and misinformation, thankfully, radio is still considered a trustworthy source. In times of huge global events, natural disaster, as well as national or local community stories, radio can be a powerful medium to accurately reflect what is happening in real time and play a big role in countering misinformation. And just as importantly, audio can celebrate culture, entertainment, and music and give the listener a sense of community and belonging. Even though radio has been around for years, it has not gone stale. Radio has evolved to stay relevant on all types of digital platforms. With the rise in podcasting, we see a younger audience being attracted to audio, with many becoming podcasters themselves. Podcasting has been fast-growing and creates plenty of exciting opportunities and possibilities for the future. All media is challenged by new consumer behavior with the development of digital platforms in today's highly competitive attention economy. This is why Radiodays Asia is so important. It allows industry leaders to share their experience and help meet current and future challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, now, Malaysia's Broadcasting Department is in the process of developing and upgrading FM radio transmitter systems. In total, there are 96 FM transmitter station sites located in the country. From that figure, 61 FM transmitter station sites have been upgraded in stages under this project. This development and upgrading of FM radio transmitter systems started in the year 2019 and is currently in the final phase involving 35 sites and is expected to be completed by the end of 2024. The efforts made by RTM clearly shows that radio plays an important role in effectively disseminating information to the people wherever they are. I'm optimistic that this effort will allow radio to remain a crucial medium to channel the unity government's initiatives to the people. Ladies and gentlemen, seeing professionals from Asia Pacific and across the world gather here in Malaysia to discuss the future of radio and podcasting is a great thing. To see a vibrant media industry looking ahead to meet audience expectations and develop its business models for the changing audio landscape in the coming years is important, not just for the audio industry itself, but also for our millions of loyal listeners now and in the future. The fourth edition of Radio Days Asia in Kuala Lumpur will run over 2 days in 2 tracks with 50 sessions. Top international speakers and industrial leaders, as well as successful producers and market experts, will share their thoughts. I wish you a fruitful conference where you can share your knowledge and experience across borders, network, and like-minded people, and make connections that can help you take your business to the future. Thank you very much. Have a fruitful conference. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much, YB Teo Ching. Of course, Radio Asia's 2023 is the third radio conference, my first actually ever, Steve, but you've been here 3 times, I believe.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is why today...
Great place to be.
Exactly, yeah, and hopefully many more to come here in KL, which is why I want to pay tribute to the organizers here today. In fact, that's a perfect segue, I think, to introduce our next speaker. Of course, he's having worked in Swedish radio in many different roles for over 30 years. He's a project director, he's a founder of Radio Days Europe, and of course, Radio Days Asia. Please give a big warm welcome to Anders Held, everyone.
Deputy Minister, delegates and speakers. It's great to see so many familiar faces coming back from last year, and it's always exciting to meet up with creative professionals coming to Radio Days. The people in our industry that understands the need to keep up with the challenges of our time and want to shape the audio landscape of the future. That's you who are here, and we will be shaping that together. It's also a pleasure to see attendees from countries who didn't come last year. We still had the pandemic affecting travel, so it's great to see you coming back here for this conference about radio in Malaysia. And also so many new faces, so I hope you will enjoy interacting with everyone. There is one idea behind Radio Days Asia, that is to provide a platform for the radio, audio and podcast industry to share ideas and learn about trends and innovations that can help the audio industry to develop, stay relevant, be innovative and financially sustainable. One challenge, we already mentioned that, is AI, artificial intelligence, which is predicted to be a game changer. We'll see, we'll learn more about that over the next 2 days. We will talk about to make great linear live radio, which is still really important, that it can keep informing and entertaining the mass audience. We will talk about digital solutions and innovations, and we will talk about podcasting, as we mentioned. That is growing fast. This year, then, with Podcast Day Asia being part of Radio Days Asia, a full day tomorrow about podcasting in track 2. There is Radio Days Europe. There is now also a Radio Days North America. But we are here today to create and develop Radio Days Asia together. Professionals coming together from so many countries, from private and public media, podcasters, to create an international meeting point in the Asia Pacific for radio and broadcasting. We're happy to work closely with all our partners. They are really important for making this a relevant conference for everyone. Commercial Radio Malaysia, ABU, Public Media Alliance, but also Radio Operators of India, Radio Festival India, Indonesian Private Radio Association, Commercial Radio Australia, Radio Broadcasting Association of New Zealand, to mention just a few. Thank you also to our sponsors and also to all our speakers that are eager to share their experience and expertise. So welcome to this 4th edition of Radiodays Asia, and I hope these Radio Days will be useful, inspiring, and fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Anders. Now to another important partner of Radio Days, the Asia Pacific Broadcasting Union, ABU.
Yes, we're not going to lose any momentum here. We'd like to introduce our next speaker, having worked in a wide range of broadcasting, media, and regulatory organizations over the past 20 years. Please give a big warm welcome to the head of radio at the ABU, Asia Pacific Broadcasting Union Malaysia, Olya. Booyah, everyone.
Hello. Oh, well, that was nice to hear. Good morning, dear Deputy Minister, our host RTM, our great member Media Prima, Anders and Radio Days, and all our colleagues, radio colleagues here, and many of our members whom I saw yesterday, and I'm looking forward to meeting for the rest of the 2 days. On behalf of the Asia Pacific Broadcasting Union, I would like to add my heartiest welcome to the 2023 Radio Days Asia conference. Whether you come from KL or you've joined us from within the Asia Pacific region, or you have traveled halfway across the world to be here, as some of you have, you are most welcome in this lovely city where ABU is headquartered. The ABU is very proud to be a partner for Radio Days Asia for a number of reasons. One is that this is an opportunity to combine resources and expertise of our organizations to multiply its usefulness to every participant. Secondly, our organizations each bring special strengths to the partnerships. For us, the ABU, we're the world's biggest broadcasting union with around 250 members spread across half the world's surface and serving more than half of the world's population. Our members between them constitute the world's biggest reservoir of expertise in public service broadcasting, from the most modest operations to some of the world's mightiest broadcasting organizations. We are diversity with a capital D. Thirdly, partnering Radio Days Asia means we can help to provide our members with another world-class radio and audio conference in the most efficient way possible. And perhaps the most important of all, a conference such as this brings together more people such as yourselves with a greater level and diversity of expertise to meet some of the greatest challenges the world media has ever had to face. And we talk about this a lot. And one of these great challenges is encapsulated in the title of this year's conference, the meeting point for radio, podcast, and audio in Asia. Because we're not longer solely the radio business, the move towards multi-platform content production and distribution has been going on for most of this century, and conferences such as this reflect how that diversity is affecting all of us. It's not too long ago that having a website was a novelty for broadcasting organizations, and that we're still struggling with ways of providing valuable and entertaining content through expensive transmitters to all our populations. Now the choice is staggering and will continue to grow until one day it will not seem strange at all. Like the humorous video of a child looking for the switch on to a book. Generations to come will wonder how we managed without digital tools that they enjoy. Words like podcasting, streaming, artificial intelligence may even disappear as seamless, borderless content and dissemination is taken for granted as the norm. In Asia and the Pacific, radio is a growing, dynamic, life-saving, and profitable medium. While we still now talk in terms like radio, podcasting, audio, the language we speak today at conferences such as this may one day sound like ancient tongues. It's our job today to help make that happen. So thank you again for attending and taking part in that important work of building the future of our medium. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much to the head of radio at ABU Malaysia, Olya. Booyah, everyone.
Thanks, Olya. For those of us who are visitors to this great country, I've been here a few times over the years. I know it has great things to offer, but there's always new things I find myself discovering. For those of you who have not been here before, welcome, and let's take a look at some of the things you can do while you're here.
They say the soul never changes. While what we see around us may change and grow, the feeling of where it came will always stay the same. The soul is life, guiding us to make us who we are and where we go. And where I'm from, we go forward, while never forgetting from where we came. So come, we have much more to share. Malaysia, truly Asia.
Truly Asia indeed, and one of the reasons why this conference chose Malaysia is that it's very much in the heart of Asia. It's easy to travel to from wherever you are in the region. It's very welcoming, richness of cultures, easy to get a visa if you've travelled through Asia. That's really important. So it's a fantastic place for all of us foreigners to come.
I mean, Steve, you've been here, you mentioned you've been here 3 times. I mean, you're practically Malaysian, I would say.
There you are.
Give us a bit of an insight. Give us some hotspots you visited that you would recommend to anyone here in Malaysia for the first time.
Batu Caves, definitely, not too far from here. If you're looking for jazz spots, there's some good jazz clubs in this city, and of course, just food anywhere.
Yeah, I was going to say, as a Malaysian here on stage, it would be blasphemy for not to mention food in Malaysia. For anyone, if you're looking for recommendations from me personally, I'd have to say, once you're in Malaysia, you cannot go, I'm going to keep it kind of generic, banana leaf. You got to try some banana leaf when you're in town. It's literally, you eat rice, curry on a banana leaf. Malaysians in the house, what are some banana leaf places we can visit? Shout some names at me. Kana Curry House? Kana Curry House? Well, nice. Okay, I feel up like a proud Malaysian right now. So banana leaf, Kana Curry House, Hashin, any other curry houses? Nirwana? You would be mad at me if I mentioned that place, brother. Yes, you can visit Nirwana in Bangsa as well, so just remember those names. Nirwana, Kana Curry House, amazing banana leaf. You got to try it when you're here.
At last year's conference, Kenny Ong challenged us in this industry to think bigger and to understand the big picture of our industry and where it's going. And he gave us a marketing perspective. I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to present this year. Kenny Ong is the CEO of Astro. He joined Astro in that role in 2021 after a career that included senior positions in Universal Music, Unilever, and other listed companies. Please welcome Kenny Ong.
Good morning. I'm very glad the Deputy Minister is not here anymore. For those of us who are from overseas, welcome to Malaysia and hope that you enjoy the food. I've got Singaporean fans here, so please don't talk about how good Malaysian food is because they will fight you to the death. Yeah, so yeah, we can exchange char kway teow notes later. Okay, so, but I'm here, invited by Anders and Radiodays Asia to again talk about the state of radio and our thoughts about it. This is nothing to do with Astro, so it's just my personal thoughts on the state of radio, especially from the Asia angle, right? A little bit different from US and Europe. Just want to explain, I think, a little bit about Malaysia and how we're going and where we're going. The 2 questions, if you are actually in a radio company, now I don't know about you, but in any way that I go with friends who are not from the radio industry, every time I sit down with lunch or dinner or any casual chat, there are only 2 questions that come to mind every time they sit down with me. I don't know about you. The first question is, so how is the radio business? First question. Second, where do you see radio 5 years from now? Second question. I get this question all the time. I got it last night, I got it 2 nights ago, and I get it every time I sit with some people. And the slides that I have here, I'm going to show, is my response to those 2 questions, right? And I think for those of us in Asia, I don't know about US and Europe enough, but many of us here in Southeast Asia and Asia, if you're in the radio business, you are that, right? So we act like everything is okay. We tell everybody that everything is good, yeah, everything is well, but inside we are just don't know where to go, right? So do I have okay, this is the one. Okay, so I'm just going to show you where Malaysia is. I don't have any global data, but I'll tell you first the good news, right? From the Malaysia GfK report back earlier in the year 2023, listenership reach is about 96% in Malaysia across all different languages, Malay, Chinese, Indian, English. So for those of you who are not from Malaysia, you'll be surprised at this number. So Malaysia is actually still very strong radio numbers. I think in many countries, still okay. The other good news is that, we are quite prevalent over on radio, we are on TV, mobile phones, we drop a little bit on internet, but these are GfK results. So if Lee Risk is here, I didn't get sanctioned to show this slide, so please do not penalize me. But these are from GfK, and this is a general slide. Now this is the good news. This is where it becomes a little bit more painful, right? So if you read any articles right now on radio, right, on anywhere, Infinite Dial, or you go to any research in Australia or anything, they'll tell you listenership is all-time high, engagement is all-time high, podcasts taking up like nobody's business, audio very strong, listenership better than TV, audience engagement better than TV, better than video, no problem. However, the problem is not so much with that. The problem is so much more with this. It's about the money, right? For those of us who are public radio, you don't have a lot of problems because you're funded by the government. But I think a lot of governments are starting to tell the radio stations, please start to be self-sustainable, otherwise we won't fund you anymore. I think, I'm not sure. But for those of us who are in commercial radio, will face this day in and day out. If you look at the trend of radio ADAX, right? The blue bar, the light blue, 2013, we were at 8%. Now we're at 4% of the market. And I think it will be lesser as the years go by. Of course, it's taken over by digital, and then the rest are falling, right? But then some of us will say, oh, of course, because, digital audio is the thing growing, and, this is where we're going and where we're putting our money into podcasts and streaming and online radio. Then I show people this chart for Malaysia, where digital audio stands. If you look at the percentage of overall of digital ADAX spend, where advertisers are spending, it's less than 1% of the total ADAX. That's audio, total, streaming put together. This includes, in Malaysia, for those of you who don't know this chart, this includes Spotify, Apple Music, Joox, KKBox, and us, online radio and podcast, under the audio bracket, and we are nowhere to be seen. I think the problem is not so much with engagement. We have great content, we have great hosts, we know what we are doing. I think the problem is trying to survive the next couple of years with this kind of thing that's ongoing. And that's why I'm showing both the good side and the bad side to it, right? So then the question is, okay, what do we do? What can we do? What's next? This is where it gets very controversial, and I'm going to show you a couple of things. And I like this kind of session because it's not panel, so there's no room for counter-argument. And there's no Q&A, right? So I love it. And my session is very short. After this, I'm going off already. So for those of you who know, I'm new to the radio industry 2.5 years. Before that, 10 years ago, I joined a company called Universal Music Group, right? And I joined it in 2015 or thereabouts. And I'll show you, and I'll give you a parallel of the music world and where radio world is. And this is the reason why we should learn a little bit from the music world, because the music world went through what the radio world is going through now. And I'll give you some parallel lessons and where we're going to go from here. So if you look at the music world and revenues, right, it started from here. And those of you who are from my generation, you are very well aware of cassettes and compact discs. Okay, and that is the growth. Some of you don't know what those are. Please Google them. You'll find the picture. This is compact disc. So this is the height of 1995, 2000. That's where compact disc was like everywhere, and we made a lot of money in the music days when CDs were out. A lot of money globally, Malaysia, Asia Pacific. But then something happened in the year 2000. Do you recognize that logo? Those of you who were around during the time, it's Napster. Napster is the peer-to-peer file sharing site that came and started what we call online piracy. That's the site that started it. And then since then, the whole thing crashed, right? Because online piracy. Then you've got that logo. Do you know what the other logo is? That also brought CDs crashing down. Those are, again, those of you who are from that era. No, that's iTunes Store. First time it came out in that year, right? And then from then on, the compact disc and the whole music industry crashed from 2000 to about 2005, 2010, and we have never recovered since from there until only recently. So it's about 20 years in the desert, right? And there was no solution. There was a partial solution. iTunes was part of it, but then after a while it fizzled away. Then came MP3s, very strong, that also fizzled away, also because of piracy, Napster. Ringtone came out, and then in Malaysia, I don't know about other countries, but the other money-making music tool was ringback tones. Do you know ringback tones? Maybe it's unique to Asia. Some of my friends in Europe have never heard of a ringback tone. Ringback tone made the bulk of money for us in this period. Then streaming came in 2005 and started to make slowly some money until 2017. So the whole music industry was crashing and burning from this period onwards, right? 2017 is a good 20 years before we started to see money coming back again. This was what happened between 2001 and where music is. Streaming started around, Spotify came in around just before 2010, and after 12 to 15 years, now we start to make money again in the music world. And I stepped in, like I said, just before 2015, when we were struggling with payments. I remember in Universal Music, we couldn't even pay our staff salaries at one point in time. Right, so, and now the music world is making money again. Why am I showing you this is because the solution to the music world came much, much later, but they had to actually go through it. That's the first thing. And the second thing about this is that the solution to the music world was not a better CD store, and the solution to the music world was not a better ringback tone service, and it wasn't a better vinyl sales reseller model. All those things didn't work. The music world survived and became what it is today because it totally changed and is totally unrecognizable from 20 years ago, and that was made money. So in my opinion, that for us, I think the word radio, again, you have no chance to counter-argue with me. I think the word radio won't survive the next 5 to 10 years. It may still be there. But if we want to make money and to really do well, I think it will fundamentally be very different from what we know today. And the solution that we're looking for doesn't exist now. You can try your best, I think, in podcasts and all these kind of things, but I think the solution is not here yet. At least for Asia. I don't know how many of you have been churning out podcast upon podcast upon podcast, and I don't know how many hands here can show me that you are really making money from podcasts. Okay, so joining that, and I showed this last year, right? We are fighting not against listenership, we are fighting against engagement. People who are spending time and money and things elsewhere that even people like Netflix have a hard time to cope. And we are somewhere along this universe, right? In audio and radio and all this, right? And it's a very big fight. But the good news is that you have seen this Spotify launch AI DJ. Why we say it's a good news, we talked about this in the Red Tech Summit, I think a few months ago, is because if a company like Spotify decides to introduce a robotic DJ radio, which means there's something right with our universe. So we should take heart that this is something that we should hang on to because it's in our DNA, and even people like Spotify and Apple Music wants to come into our field, right? So we have to, anybody from Spotify here? No? Okay, good. Never mind. This will go up on YouTube anyway. So, but no, we have to learn where to fight and how to fight. That's what I'm saying. And coming from the music world, like I said, the perspective is slightly different. So the good news is that we have something special that other streaming services don't have, and we have to hang on to it. And I think for us to really transform, there are what I call the 4 wheels, and I'll just recommend these 4 things with the question mark right in the middle. And I think to transform the radio industry, we'll take these 4 wheels aligned together. The first one is the question, why do we exist? And why do people buy? Why do we listen? I've shared this last year. Very quickly, for those of you who recognize that on the top left, women will know what that is. Right? What is that? Guys? For guys, that is a black color bag. For women, what do you call that? It's a Chanel, right? So and if you ask most women, they will instinctively tell you immediately the price of which model and where they can buy. Guys don't know what that is. But again, let me ask you this question. It's a Chanel bag, yes. It's expensive, yes. But do people buy a Chanel bag to carry items? It's made to carry items, but do people buy it to carry items? No. People buy a Chanel bag for a lot of other reasons, and carrying items is one of them, but it's very low on the list. So the question of why a product exists, you must know, then you will know how to position it and how to sell it. Radio is the same thing, right? Rolex watch is the other one. Guys like to, in quote-unquote, invest in watches. And Rolex is one of them, but again, do you buy a Rolex watch to look at time? That's not the main reason. There are other reasons, but it's definitely not the main reason. Okay, so I think for radio, the reason why I put the question here is that what we need to understand is that for radio, I don't think we should focus on the radio as a platform. If you really want to survive, then I think we need to understand what is the role of radio that we want radio to play. And it's actually different from radio station to radio station. That means each radio has its own purpose, and you have to find out what it is. And not all radio are the same. So I've just put some examples here of a couple of main reasons why you think your radio has a USP or a balance of this. I think I will have to say this. In order to be really good at what we're doing to survive, you will need to be very, very strong in 2, at the most 3 out of all this. You can't do all. If you try to do all, you become a very, very average platform with no engagement. You won't be good in anything. I think you need to choose 1 or 2 or 3 and some of this, right? And you have to be really good at it in order to take the battle to Spotify and to Netflix and to TikTok and to the world. An example is, if one of your DNA is music discovery, then you have to understand the playing field, right? Do you know what these are? If you don't know, if you're radio programmers and you're doing music discovery is your core strength, and you don't refer to these charts when you do your music discovery, you have a problem. New Music Friday comes out every Friday. When was New Music Friday created? Do you remember? Do you know what it is? Some of you are too young to know what this is, right? New Music Friday came out in 2015 as a global release schedule worldwide for music. It only comes out on Friday. It came out in 2015, and the whole world follows this schedule because it's anti-piracy against digital, right? So you have to check. If you are into music discovery, then you have to ensure that your music discovery playlist matches these few playlists. If not, then you're not in the music discovery game. You are way behind. Same as if you are CHR, you have to then benchmark against your list against Spotify. How old are your songs? Top 10, top 20, 30. If you are still playing songs from 8 weeks ago, you are not a CHR station. So, and if you're catering to the Gen Zs, do you know what this is? These are Gen Z lingo, right? And if you cannot understand half of it, you shouldn't be playing the Gen Z game. Somebody should be playing it, not you. So, again, I won't go through these. These are extra slides because I've been asked to end. We'll talk about revenue and how to get it. And I think for revenue, just very quickly, in order to be powerful from the radio perspective, you need to integrate radio with a lot of other platforms in order to sell. That's what clients are looking for. Very few clients are looking for a single platform to be able to sell because they're trying to reach an audience. They're not trying to reach a platform. So that's a major difference. These are subscription. Again, I don't have time to explain this, but these are, if you are playing the subscription game, these are the different models that you should explore and try. And then you have to talk about availability, another part of the wheel. You have to learn about reach, and you have to learn as a radio, how do you extend your reach and incremental reach across platforms, depending on what you specialize in. Again, depending on, this is for age group 12 to 15, and if you are focusing on news, you better know where you are playing, where people are getting their news, and if you're radio, this is where you should put your social media energy on, right? Depending on where you are. This is age 12 to 15. Yeah, okay, and these are all the different social media platforms and tools and how you should match. And the last one is tech. I think for us, the only lucky thing, my last 1 minute, will be, we are very lucky that what we call the tech industry for audio and radio is still very bad, especially the car. We're very fortunate. It is still very fragmented in the car. It is still very clunky if you try to connect a Bluetooth. And it's still very inconvenient if you try to do anything to do with Spotify or radio. It's still our strength. So as long as the cars around the world remain badly connected, radio survives. The moment they're all uniform and they know what they're doing and the tech syncs immediately they step into the car, radio will be dead very fast. So, I won't go through those. These are the things that we should look out for. I put AI there, and this is something that we should look out for. And these are things that will affect us in one way or another. If you have questions on some of this, we can discuss over tea or coffee. But I would just say that I think of all this, the top two would be your key thing that you should look out for: regulatory changes and CMOs, the collection management organizations. You know, those public performance and all this, which is a pain to all radio players in the country, in the world. So you must learn how to negotiate with them and learn where to stand and draw the line. And we learn how to fight legislature. I think that's important for radio players. Okay, so my last 3 points. The savior of radio, I think, is not here yet. I don't think any of the technology or platforms that we have today is going to save radio. I doubt it. The other thing is that hold on to the fort as best as we can. Innovate, do whatever you can. I think the 4 wheels I've showed you there. You can do whatever you want and try to pedal as much as you can. And one of these days, the solution will come, but I think it's not yet here. But based on, like I said, based on my experience with the music industry, it will come soon, but I don't think it will be in the form that we recognize today. But it will come, and we just need to last it out. That's all from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kenny Ong, CEO of Astro Radio, for an inside look, of course, in a bigger picture marketing perspective. Thank you very much. A very eye-opening experience there, Steve.
Hold the fort and it will come. Good advice. Yeah, it's a black bag. I've no idea what that was, that black bag, but apparently it's important. Pamela Cook is next. She's from SBS Australia. She's the head of planning and delivery. And she's going to talk about how SBS in Australia has evolved from radio to audio and the need to find clever ways to visualise audio. She's got a background in radio news and producing. She's managed content projects, live broadcast events, and she's developed podcast series. Let's hear from Pamela Cook.
Thank you. Good morning. It's great to be with you to talk about the work we're doing at SBS to evolve our offering for audiences. The Special Broadcasting Service is a unique public broadcaster. We provide multilingual and multicultural media that informs, educates and entertains all Australians, and in doing so reflect Australia's multicultural society. We began in 1975 in response to a need from Australia's government to communicate a new health insurance scheme to language-speaking migrants, a large number of which had arrived since the end of the Second World War. We started as 2 small radio stations in Sydney and Melbourne, servicing 8 languages. Today, SBS Audio serves over 60 languages across platforms, broadcast radio, live streaming, podcasting and digital publishing. Our services focus on delivering Australian news and information to help audiences to fully participate in Australian life. We give voice to issues in communities and celebrate their contribution to foster a sense of belonging. Our vision is to be a trusted voice in the hearts, heads and hands of multilingual and multicultural Australians. Australia is a rich, diverse nation. Nearly half of all Australians are first or second generation migrants. We identify with over 250 ancestries, and our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders First Peoples are one of the world's oldest continuous cultures. We are linguistically diverse. Over 5.5 million Australians use a language other than English, and our services represent 92% of language speakers. Here's a picture from the 70s in studio with the Croatian team. Much has changed, hasn't it, since then? From the tech to the cigarettes inside. In the early days, we were pretty much the only source of news in language produced in Australia, and you could only hear us live with a radio. Now, our audiences access a global market of media, and ways to listen on digital devices abound. Now, what hasn't changed since these days is our focus on delivering distinctive, trustworthy, impartial in-language content. Our team's deep connection with their communities is what enables SBS to continue to tell these great stories. And it's on these foundations that we look ahead to our 50th birthday in 2025. Today, language speakers are younger, bilingual, and more digitally engaged than the average Australian, and consume more content through the internet and social platforms. Our goal is to grow reach and relevance with existing and new audiences. So how do we remain relevant? Every 5 years, in line with our national census, we carry out a strategic review to ensure our services reflect today's Australia. We developed a selection criteria to assess the different needs of language speakers. To make sure the criteria was fit for purpose, we ran a public consultation, receiving over 2,000 submissions. Using this criteria and census data, we consider factors such as audience size, level of English proficiency, how long language speakers have been in Australia, age and household income. The results of the review saw us updating our languages, including launching 5 new services and closing 9. We are increasing investment in languages from the Indo-Pacific and South Asia, alongside First Nations language content. I think I've skipped ahead. I skipped right ahead, but I'll keep going. So how do we grow our reach? We know our audiences are younger and more digitally engaged, and we want to continue to service our loyal radio listeners. So this requires a really multifaceted approach. We are investing in ways to increase our prominence and impact of our content on digital platforms. Core to the strategy is visualising more of our audio on owned and third-party platforms. A great example is what we're doing with our music channels like SBS Chill. Soon our listeners will be able to watch this content via our FVOD service SBS On Demand, with high-definition images tailored to the audio and now playing data. So more broadly, it's now common for our audio producers to create compelling visuals to support their podcasts and language content. These videos and images are critical to increasing our reach with users on social and video platforms like YouTube. We're also exploring and investing in technology that increases accessibility of our content. We want to give audiences more choice to read or listen in language, to personalise recommendations and surface our content to new audiences. Now, a key enabler of this strategy is optimising our radio schedules so audiences have more ways to listen live or on demand. We have more language programs on more of our radio channels. We'll have more live day broadcasts and more content available on digital for on-demand listening in the evening. Now, the dynamic space of social media presents challenges to ensure optimal publishing, and we work with our teams to provide guidance on managing risk, from maintaining standards of impartiality and accuracy to protocols to manage harassment or offensive comments, and at times they cover topics which may be more sensitive in a community. Our current focus is monitoring evolving AI technology, most notably generative AI, to provide guidelines on potential use in editorial workflows. We currently service 9 South Asian languages, and all these communities are growing, some significantly. Punjabi speakers now count 240,000 users, and that's up 80% in 5 years. In the same period, Nepali speakers grew 115%. Now, in response, we are building out their audience experience with a new radio channel, a hybrid of language programs and music, plus investing in more audio and digital production in language and in English, reflecting the high proficiency across all communities. Oh, let's see if I can go back here. Here we go. I'm back on track. So, we've also updated our content formats to better reflect audience needs. So using census data, you can see visualised in this square here, this framework aligns content to each community's settlement journey, from those recently arrived to established with higher or lower English proficiency. So we're tailoring how we produce news and current affairs and targeting education and essential services information where communities need it most. Now, an example of this is our Australia Explained series, which offers practical information on areas like employment, housing, health and education, with podcasts, articles and videos in English and 30 languages. Plus, we're playing more music on radio to celebrate and explore culture. Importantly, we don't just speak to our individual communities, we utilise our network to share stories across language. So when a language team has a unique story, which may have wider appeal, we repurpose it in English for sharing to be translated in other languages, as well as shared in English to the wider community. Our community activations team keeps us visible on the ground, and we support celebrations with outside broadcasts and stakeholder partnerships throughout the year. All of SBS, including TV and online, also marks cultural celebrations with content and events, including Lunar New Year, Eid and Diwali. So our recent rebranding from SBS Radio to SBS Audio reflects our evolution from linear to multi-platform. Audio is the heart of our offering. It's about strengthening live radio, making that audio more accessible for on-demand and sharing it via the digital platforms of choice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Head of Planning and Delivery, SBS Australia, Pamela Cook, everyone.
Have you been cloned, Ryan?
Sorry, Steve. Can I just let everyone know this is a joke that was written into our script. We're going to try and pull it off. I don't think it's going to land, but sorry, Steve. Could you ask me the question again?
Take two. Have you been cloned, Ryan?
Have I been cloned? If you're suggesting I'm a robot, Steve, I don't know what you're talking about. No, I can't even do the robot dance, Steve. You're talking about AI, of course, Steve.
I am talking about AI. I think it worked. I heard laughing.
Yes, I love those people there. I love them. I love them.
Yeah, the lady in red there gets the prize. Yes. AI can clone voices, it can tell our jokes, it can script them, perhaps better than...
Much better than ours, I think, Steve.
So, to hear about artificial intelligence and what it can do for us, to us, let's welcome Francis Curry and Christian Schalt.
So good morning. My name's Francis Curry. I work as an international audio consultant helping radio stations and audio businesses grow audiences. AI. Who knew? 1 year ago, at this conference, we had one low-key session about AI. Fast forward 12 months, and today we have, and tomorrow we have a total of 4 sessions with a stellar lineup of really compelling speakers. This first session is called How AI is Transforming Radio's Entire Value Chain. Our keynote speaker is Christian Schalt, Chief Digital Officer for RTL Radio in Germany. But before he speaks, let me tell you a couple of things. RTL is a major media company in Germany and beyond Germany. They have TV, radio, podcasts, magazines, and the company's been experimenting with AI on many levels throughout the organization. I first worked with Christian in 2008. Then he was head of KISS FM in Berlin. So I've known him and admired his work for 15 years. As a programmer, he excelled at combining science and art. Can you think of another radio station, a rhythmic CHR radio station, that would do an entire morning show in Latin? He's also great at combining strategy and tactics, combining people skills with a fascination with innovation. Fast forward those 15 years, and Christian is now not only Chief Digital Officer at RTL Radio Germany, he's also General Manager of Audio Alliance and General Manager of Digital Media Hub. So his job involves overseeing RTL's digital audio activities on a strategic, technological, and content level. So that includes podcasts, it includes radio, it includes audio technology. So he's pretty much uniquely placed to talk about the leading edge in terms of activity and thinking in audio and in radio. So please welcome to the stage one of the smartest people I have the pleasure of knowing to give us the benefit of this leading edge work in AI. Ladies and gentlemen, Christian Schalt.
Thank you very much, Francis. That was really kind. I never has been introduced so kindly. Thank you very much. So let's talk about AI. With AI, I think everything's possible now. Especially generative AI is able to create any form of text, especially ChatGPT. It's able to create visuals, whether it's images or videos. And probably the most relevant from our perspective, it's also possible to produce speech content, mainly artificial voices. But just the fact that everything's possible now doesn't mean it's always useful. So when implementing AI to your radio station, to your business, think of the question, how can it add value? Yeah? And I think it's really important just not to implement AI for the sake of implementing AI, but to think about the potential added value. And I think added value can be two things. It can be reduced cost. That's often quite a main reason why stations are introducing it, and it's okay. It can be a target. But I think it's even more important to think about a functional benefit. What can AI add to your radio station in terms of making your radio station a better radio station? So let's look at the typical the typical value chain of a radio station. And this is focused on commercial radio. I know there are also other forms of radio, but let's think of the typical value chain of a commercial radio station. At the core, of course, it's content creation. It's your DJs, it's music, it's news, and so on. And then as a second step, you usually put this content into shape. So it's production. You do audio production, you schedule music, you do everything that makes your content sound a great way. Then you spend a lot on efforts on promotion and marketing in order to get enough awareness for your content and to reach the desired audience. In this audience, you usually sell against clients. Yeah? So most radio stations are still ad-funded, so that's your basic business model. And this is not in particular order, but of course you have to distribute your radio station, whether it's FM or digital platforms. That's the typical value chain of a radio station. And AI can add value to each of these steps. And we will go through all these steps step by step and to see how and where AI can add additional value. And let's start with content creation. I don't know if you're aware of the Simpsons episode. It's from 16 years ago. And the Simpsons were, believe it or not, 16 years ago from now talking about AI at radio stations. And this is what they said about it.
Automatically, and it has 3 distinct varieties of inane chatter.
Hey, how about that weather out there? Whoa, that was the caller from hell. Well, hot dog, we have a wiener.
Man, that thing's great. Don't praise the machine.
If you don't get that kid an elephant by tomorrow, the DJ 3000 gets your job.
Looks like those clowns in Congress did it again. What a bunch of clowns.
How does he keep up with the news like that?
So it's particularly funny if you know American radio, and these more inside jokes. But I think there's a lot of truth in it, because it's not a good idea just to replace your DJs, which is probably your most valuable content, by machines. So also in this case, it's important to think about how can artificial voices add additional value. This is how we did at RTL. As Francis mentioned, RTL is a big media corporation. We own radio, but we also do a lot of TV in Germany. And what we did, we took the most popular, or one of the most popular TV news anchors, pictured left, and cloned him. So we took his voice, we cloned him. That was more than a year ago, so it still took a lot of efforts. Now it's easier. That's how it sounds in German.
Immobilienhain kommt Geldgier möglicherweise teuer zu stehen. Der Bundesrat will Mietwucher härter bestrafen. Vermieter, die unangemessen teure Mieten verlangen, sollen künftig mit einem Bußgeld von bis zu 100.000 € belegt werden.
Yeah, I know it's in German and it's hard to judge in a foreign language, but it sounds pretty okay. By the way, we played this voice to his mother, and she couldn't find out the difference between the cloned voice and him, which is very scary. But what we did then, we thought about how can this voice and this speech model add additional value. And we have a news TV station in Germany called NTV, and they produce roughly between 300 and 400 articles per day. And what we did, we combined these articles with his cloned voice and produced automatically a personalized news briefing, a news bulletin. So we took all these 400 articles. You can listen to them on the website. You can listen to them on the app. And there's even an app for in-car dashboards that you get personalized news briefings in the combination of these articles and his voice. And this is particularly of added value because we use this new audio inventory to sell radio spots. So it's now a few millions of sessions per day that we can sell across our audio inventory. And if you think this further, this is what Spotify does and has been mentioned before, use artificial voices to create additional value. And Spotify does it with this personalized AI DJ that is your personal companion, your personal DJ for your personalized playlist.
Hey Max, what's going on? I'm X, and from this moment on, I'm gonna be your own personal AI DJ on Spotify. Let's go. Up next, I know you've been on a summer song kick lately, so I went back for some of your old summertime favorites. See if it warms you up. Next up, some of the music you had on a lot back in 2018.
Do you think of me?
All right, Max, let's get you out of your feels and switch up the vibe. You've been into dance music lately. I got this brand new release to get you moving. Introducing DJ, the best of Spotify made just for you on tap away. Powered by AI, delivered by me, your very own DJ.
Yeah, I think this is a very compelling proposition, and Spotify can do it because they have so much data about your personal music preference, but to combine this with artificial voices is clearly some added value. So let's move on to production. I think the theme with production at radio stations is that AI is being introduced into the working software we usually use. So in this case, production software. And here is, as an example, how Adobe does it, how they introduced AI to the production software used across many radio stations.
All right, so now the audio should sound really kind of strange and wonky here. The microphone's way over there, and it's not even pointed at me or anything, and this is exactly the setup that I had yesterday when I screwed up this audio. So now what we're going to do is we're going to switch and hear the difference in the audio. Can you hear that? So what we did is we took the audio track out of the video, and then we uploaded it over to Adobe's website really quick. And on Adobe's website, it did the improvements. We drag and drop the audio file, so you can hear the difference between this and the other track. So happy accident, I'll say.
Yeah, and this is a theme, again, that we see across all of our departments, that AI is helping to produce either more smartly or to be more efficient. And we introduced kind of rule, a kind of policy at RTL that we want to use these tools not to start from scratch again. We always want to start, let's say, from 30%. We cut at the beginning, at the end automatically, or in the next example, when it comes to promotion and marketing, we use ChatGPT and other AI forms to do the basic work first. So this is an example of what we did recently at RTL. We acquired the rights for NFL in Germany, and we also use them across our radio stations. And we asked ChatGPT to come up with 3 creative ideas for a radio contest that combines the NFL and the games and radio. And I don't know how often you do this. It's usually a very good starter. And if you combine what ChatGPT is providing with what you usually get from your human counterparts in the departments, it's often pretty much matching the quality. Yeah, and we don't want to replace people. We still engage a lot of people in this space, but again, we don't want to start from scratch again. We want to raise the level of creativity and quality by starting from, let's say, 30%. We do the same. We're now moving to sales with sales ideas. A typical sales idea that has to be developed in a radio station is a promotion for a new product, in this case for the new Seat Ateca, which is a fuel-efficient but fun car. And we usually start also by asking ChatGPT, what ideas could you come up with? And if you look, it's very small here, you see the ideas ChatGPT is coming up are usually of equal quality than of our human counterparts. So again, the idea here is to start not from scratch, but to start from 30% and then to either regenerate the ideas or to use them with human intelligence to make it even better. But there's even more in sales and AI, and I think the biggest potential of AI tools lie in the sales department. So what we use a lot in Germany is the automated spot creation. This is an example of the company we use called Sonicell. And you put in some basic briefing words about the commercial you would like to have. In this case, it's a made-up example. I wrote in simple text about a party at the clubhouse, Saturday evening at 10, free drinks until midnight, of course with the best DJs and some fireworks, and get your free tickets at bigparty.com. And within seconds, it generates 3 to 5 spots, including music, including voices, and then you can twist them. You can either reduce mistakes, or you can rewrite something, you can change the music, you can change the voice, you can change the mood or the tone of the voice, and then you end up within minutes with an okay commercial spot. In this case, is the spot I generated, and it sounds like this.
Party at the Clubhouse presents the most thrilling event of the year. Join us this Saturday at 10 p.m. for an unforgettable night filled with non-stop music, free, flowing drinks, and mind-blowing fireworks. Our top DJs will keep you dancing all night long while you enjoy complimentary drinks until midnight. Don't miss out on this epic party. Visit bigparty.com now to secure your tickets and get a chance to win free passes.
So is it the best commercial spot ever? Probably not, but it's produced within seconds and usually quite affordable. And Also in this case, we thought about the added value. And what we did is we introduced a self-service portal where you can create these spots on your own. And we are especially targeting small and mid-enterprise clients who usually would not do radio commercials. So they can go on this website. It's called Radio Ad Maker in Germany. They can produce their own spot. They can automatically upload this to the radio station. They can decide on the reach. They can decide on the budget. They can pay via credit card or PayPal. And then the spot gets either played on the radio and or on all the digital platforms. And this is something we aim for the sake of reaching small and medium enterprise customers, but also agencies who would like to use audio in the programmatic chain. So we are about to introduce this to the biggest agencies in Germany that want to book audio also in a programmatic way, and then it's automatically transferred to the programmatic chain. Spotify used this and developed it even further. They use it to replace their human host reads on podcast. It's often hard to convince hosts to read host reads on podcast. Sometimes they're not available, so Spotcast replaces them with their own voice and does it automatically through AI. And if you think even further, and this is an example from Instramatic in the US, why don't use celebrity voices then? If you can clone anyone, why don't clone celebrities? And Instramatic used the voice of Tom Hanks. Disclaimer here, I have no idea how they solved the rights. Maybe they didn't. But here's the example of a commercial with the voice of Tom Hanks.
Good morning, Los Angeles. Tom Hanks here. And yes, this whole message is generated by voice AI. I just met the Instramatic team, and they told me about an amazing tool called Contextual Audio Ads, which you already know about. I'll let you get back to your podcast now.
Yeah, so you can localize it. You can let him say whatever you would like to do. Again, clear the rights first, probably. But with artificial voices, you can play around. You can really use them to your advantage. And in the case of sales, it's clearly added value because it usually means added revenues. So there's one thing that I think it's really thrilling about sales, that for the first time you can also add context to audio. And we do this with podcasts, we do this with on-demand audio, and we are about to implement this also for streaming audio, that you automatically transcript the audio, that you then you run a semantic analysis, so you search the text for keywords, you aggregate them, and then you transfer them into IAB categories. So for those of you who are not familiar with the IAB categories, it's the international classification of certain categories in order to be targetable for clients. So if the audio is about cars, then it gets the category cars. If it's about financial advice, it gets the financial advice category, and so on. And these categories are automatically transferred to the ad server. So audio now has context, and clients, and especially programmatic clients, can then automatically target any audio we are offering, which hasn't been the case before. So I think this is really something that leverages your sales, because it opens the door to targeted advertising and especially to programmatic advertising. And one last thing that's often a bit uncool to talk about metadata, but it's very important for us. With generative AI, it's also possible to add visual metadata to the audio in real time. And I think this is really something that helps you to make your audio much more valuable. We did this together with Microsoft with one of our big podcasts. It's a very popular kids podcast. And in this podcast, they were talking about animals, so protection of certain species. And while the podcast was played, DALL-E, in this case, the Microsoft visualization AI software, generated pictures that were corresponding to the content. So if the moderator was talking about some animals in the forest, it pictured a forest with some animals. if she was talking about certain species, it pictured the species, and you can do it either with pre-produced database stored images, or you can even create it on the fly. And I think this is something really useful for radio and audio in many cases because again, it adds context to your live audio and even adds visual context to your audio, which is great for listeners, but also a big opportunity for additional revenue. So here are our key topics we would like to emphasize in terms of using AI in our most valuable form. We expect to see more synthetic voices, and we are about to establish also corporate voices. So that, like a morning host, you have certain hosts or certain voices that are really attached to your brand, and we see that this is more and more common. We think especially that the biggest opportunity for AI lies in the sales department, so we will emphasize these self-service tools for small and mid enterprise clients and for agencies more and more. And we want to monetize new inventories in new ways. That's probably the biggest goal and the biggest added value we see because it means additional revenues. We, as I mentioned earlier, would like to use more and more AI in our routines, especially if it's integrated into our existing working software, whether it be production software like Adobe, or music scheduling software, or even just the usual Microsoft Office tools. AI is becoming more and more integrated, and we would like to use it. And the biggest task and our biggest commitment is to upskill staff. I think it's a journey. Sometimes it's a bit threatening, but to see all these potential and to work with the AI tools, it's a big task, and the way to reach this task is by upskilling staff. And everything we do in this case has the goal to add more value, as I said earlier, because AI is not there for the sake of being AI, it's here to add more value to your radio station. Thank you.
Christian, a fantastic overview. And I think one of my observations is that we are, in some places, still in a place where kind of an AI voice is a novelty. And radio stations are rushing to maybe get some press or maybe get some coverage. But everything you've talked about is how much more than a toy AI is.
Definitely, and I think many radio stations treat AI a bit like a morning show stunt. Hey, we can be cloned, yeah, haha. But I think I would be really careful about just using AI as a play or as a toy. I think it can create a lot of additional value, but probably more in the non-content parts of the business, especially in sales. And I think this question, how can it add value, should be the first, and then playing around with it should be second.
So kind of, what's the why? Start there.
Exactly.
Why are you doing this? Where's the value? And if you work for a RTL, they have a big audience, they have a lot of money. If you were working with a smaller radio station with much more limited resources, where would you be spending your time and money with AI?
I would always focus on additional inventory. So whatever I would do, I would like to create more and more inventory that I can sell. And it can be something, this is also happening in Germany, that radio stations that don't have a TV station like RTL team up with local newspapers and create audio content based on the newspaper articles and then sell it against radio clients. And most of the other media companies are not used to sell audio. So this is really a key asset or key competence we have across all radio stations, that we know how to monetize audio. So we always aim for additional revenue.
And one last question, and you may not want to answer it, but with cloning voices, with reversioning content, have you figured out what the relationship should be with the voice talent? Where we have a good history, I think, of either having a buyout system or paying royalties for recording commercials. But this is different. This voice can be forever.
Yeah, it's very different, and it was one of the most interesting and most discussed topics within the company to come up with a proper, fair model for our cloned DJs or cloned anchors. And we did a lot of discussions about it. The model we ended up with was that we set up a separate contract with the DJs or anchors in this case, and we clearly defined for what purpose we use the voice. In this case, only for this news bulletin for our TV station, and we also limit it to a time period. So we say it's only for a year, and we will renew it every year. We don't do these buyouts because we think it's not morally acceptable. And of course, our idea is not to replace DJs and talents. Our idea is to enhance them and to use them for things a human cannot do, like personalization or 24/7 delivery of speech content, and not to exploit them.
Christian, thank you so much. If you have any questions for Christian, if you'd like to continue the conversation, also with Paul Kay from Rogers, who'll be talking this afternoon, there is a meetup this afternoon. We have about 20 minutes where Christian, Paul, I, and maybe some others will all be available to have a conversation about anything specific that he's raised. Can I also mention 2 other AI sessions later today? We're looking at AI in India, China, and Malaysia in track 2 this afternoon, with Moots from Malaysia, with Ramesh Menon from India, and with Zhu Heiyang from China. And we'll be talking to Paul Kay from Rogers in Canada this afternoon in here at 3 o'clock about how to leverage the AI technology. But for now, I'm sure you'll agree, a standout session, a fascinating insight. Ladies and gentlemen, Christian Schalt.
Thank you very much, Francis Curry and Christian Schalt, on that little inside look on how AI is transforming radio's entire value, Steve.
The final session in this morning's track is Valerie Geller, our final presenter. She's known around the world for her coaching and consultancy work to help presenters create powerful radio and podcasts. She's going to share some of her tips with us today. Welcome, Valerie.
Thank you so much, Steve. And I'm excited to actually follow Christian and Francis because, again, AI and also Kenny, what he had said, yes, there's going to be a lot of changes in the delivery systems and the platforms. There's a quote from L.P. Hartley, "The past is a different country. We don't live there anymore." And it is true. It is a new world, and we are scrambling and learning, and it's very, very exciting what's happening. What will never change is when someone says, "Did you hear?" or "I've got a story," or "What's happening?" That will never change. And that's one of the things that radio and now podcasting, and really all audio media can serve. So again, what I'd like to focus on now is not so much all the fancy new technology, because Kenny's right, we don't know what's going to happen in the future or what the delivery systems are going to be. It's an X factor. But what we do know is content is king. And if you create powerful content, you will always have listeners, and it doesn't matter the medium. It actually doesn't matter. So the work I do, and people go, "Oh, you've been doing this for so long and it's the same message." Well, it's because this works. It's like gravity. Throw something up, it falls. Tell the truth, make it matter, never be boring. These things work to get, keep, and grow audiences. The problem with podcasting is that anyone can talk, and so everybody's trying it. And here's the curse of our business. The curse of radio is that the great ones make it look so easy that everybody thinks they can do it. There's a ton of content, but it's not all good. So really, it's going to be aggregation, sifting through, and finding what you like to hear from the presenters that you trust and you feel connected to. Podcasting and radio are really the same thing. One is audio on demand, and the other is audio live through a radio. But it still needs to serve an audience and connect with an audience. But I'm not so worried about, podcasting or radio. I'm not worried about it. I'm worried about, is it boring? Is it relevant? Does it matter? You know, are you giving something to the audience? The books I've written are now all around the world in all languages because actually, quite frankly, they have nothing to do with radio. That's why they work around the world. Because it has nothing to do with radio. It has to do with human connection and communication. People talking to people. One person talking to another person. So again, and this is the book in English, but again, it's also an audio book on Audible. But the bottom line is it has nothing to do with radio. It's just communication techniques. Radio's the way we get it out there to people. So let's look at why listeners come to us. They want to be informed, entertained, inspired, persuaded, and connected. This is why they put their finger on the button and listen to you. And if you are doing any one of these things, it works. If you're doing more than one of these things, it really works. Now, there's a model I developed, and again, one of the reasons why I love Christian is he has models, and in working with the podcasting yesterday with Deutsche Welle, I was so impressed with the model. And when I was working in Germany years ago, they said, well, what's the model? And I didn't have one. And I found out very quickly that it was not easy for people in Germany to function without a model. So we developed a model, and I'm very grateful. So really it was Antenna Bayern many years ago. So the first thing is focus. What is it you want to talk about? And here are the things human beings always listen to. And it doesn't matter, I've worked in Singapore, the Philippines, I've worked in India. It doesn't matter where you are. These are the things that people will always be interested in. The first thing is health and safety. The next one is emotion. Do you touch the heart? Do people care? The next one is money, and quite frankly, money, power, and politics kind of all goes together because actually, if you have enough money, you can make choices about your life. And power and politics have a lot to do with money as well. So we just put it all under the money umbrella. And then the last category is transformation. How can your life be better tomorrow than it is today because of something that you have heard on the radio, something you're delivering? And again, if you think about the commercials, they deliver it. Do you want to lose weight? Do you want a better car? Do you want to grow hair? Do you want to get out of financial debt? Do you want tickets to a game? They are all transformative. And if we can look at each piece that we're doing on the news, each piece of content your disc jockeys or talk show presenters are doing, are you giving the listener anything that's going to make his or her life better tomorrow than it was today because you were on the radio? Now, again, in storytelling, a lot of journalists and a lot of disc jockeys are trained who, what, where, why, when, and how. What we found is that it works better if you put the what before the who. So instead of the police have arrested da-da-da-da, it becomes the man who robbed 5 banks is now under arrest. Put the what before the who, and it works better. Put attribution at the bottom. And we found that out of, what, where, when, why, how. Also look at the how questions. How does this affect your listener? How can you describe this more visually? Now, radio is a blind medium, but now that we've got the internet, and we've just seen with Christian, you can put the little bunny rabbits right up there, if you're talking about the bunny rabbits. So again, if you can describe things visually, what we know, and I don't think this is going to shock anybody, men are very, very visual. And when they did the brain science research with the functional MRI, where they actually looked at the male brain, how men and women take in information, here's what happened. When the male subject was given a visual cue or shown a picture, the learning centers in the male brain lit up yellow. Men are visual. I don't think anybody's surprised by that. We know it sexually, it's true with everything. And so, if we know men are visual, if you can describe things visually, it's going to be more powerful. So instead of what a beautiful sunset, use the language to paint the pictures. In English, it might be tangerine sky. You know, paint a picture. Now, conversely with women, and again, this is not 100%, it was about 80%. With women, they liked the pictures, but unless you touched her heart and made her feel, nothing lit up in the female brain. And these were the differences between how most men and women took in information. So as broadcasters, if we know this, and if you speak visually and you speak emotively, talk about what something looks like and what it feels like, then you're going to own your listeners and they will not tune out. So again, one of the best examples I heard was, in part of this research, was the man and the woman are sitting together, they're a couple, and they're watching television. And the man is looking at her out of the corner of his eye, and he considers it time spent together. No woman on earth considers sitting watching television together time spent together, unless you're eyeballing and communicating emotionally. That time together doesn't count. So again, these are things that we can apply what we have found in the brain science to radio and keep and grow audiences and get people listening longer. Can you make somebody care? One of the secrets about making somebody care is, how do you care about it? Is this just, and now another topic manufactured to fill a slot on my radio show? Or is this something you would talk about off air that means something to you? And when it means something to you, it works better, because acting doesn't work that well on radio. It's too intimate and too powerful a medium. It's person to person, and it's a deep connection. One of the people you're going to meet this afternoon is Richard Feidler. He's one of the best interviewers on the planet. The reason why is you feel you know Richard from hearing his program, and you get the same man off air that you get on air. He would ask those same questions of the people he's interviewing over coffee or lunch as he would on the radio. And that's why he's a star in Australia and why it works. How do you care about it? How come you're putting the story on air? If a problem's presented, what's the solution? How did it happen? Could it have been prevented? How else can you tell the story? Would you tell this to a friend? Now, if you're putting things on the radio that you would not tell your friends, why are you putting it on the radio? So I ask you, think about it, okay? How can you make it better? How would you tell the story if your life depended on not losing a listener? And finally, would you put this on a demo if you had to get another job? A lot of my job is air checking. I sit in rooms all day long with presenters all over the planet, and we work with an air check criteria, and we listen back to what that person did on the air, and we look at how we can strengthen the strengths and work on things to make that human being a more powerful communicator. Was it boring? Did anything go too long? Was there any fun? Was there any humor? I'm ready to put Kenny on. I'm ready to give him a radio show, because that man is funny, telling the truth all over the place, but he's fun. He's one of the things we always ask is, before we hire anybody, would you take a 5-hour car journey with this person and have a great time? And there's a lot of people who are very smart. There are a lot of people who have beautiful voices. There are a lot of people who have a lot of experience, but you might not want to take a 5-hour car journey with them. And the ones you would get in the car with are the ones that are going to be the breakthrough stars. So that's the X factor. Is there new information? Is the storytelling powerful? By the way, you are in the story business if you work in radio. That's your business, stories, people and life, holding up a mirror and reflecting life today. The struggle to be human and helping your audience get through. This is your job. It's not radio. Finally, do we know you from hearing your show? How many people here are on the air? How many people face the microphone every day? Okay. The highest praise, if you're on mic, that you'll ever get, or people who work for you, is, I don't know you, but I feel like I know you because I listen to you on the air. And that's very powerful when that happens, okay? When you can really connect where strangers feel connected. Those are the radio stations where the on-air presenters are stars, okay? Did you make an eye-to-eye connection with your audience, and did you offer a unique journey that that audience can't get elsewhere? Okay, more air check rules. Always work with audio. Praise publicly, criticize privately. Always have a solution for each problem presented. If you tell someone about a problem, if you as a manager don't have a solution for that, wait until you have some concrete things you can offer before you start picking on the talent. Listen like a listener. If you can work with older audio, it's better because you forgot what you meant. You know, if you let a few weeks go by, you forget what you meant to say, and you can listen to it with what we call clean ears, okay? People don't resist their own ideas. That's one of the management tricks. So as managers trying to get on-air personalities, producers, and news reporters to think they came up with it is a very powerful thing. And finally, the only person who likes change is a wet baby, and that is true. So you're going to be hearing at this conference a lot about change. And I don't care who you are. It's not comfortable, and we will make mistakes. And that's part of the process, and that's the right way forward. There's more in the book, and I have a book here if you want to take a look at it. And of course, I'm going to be around the whole couple of days. So what I'd like to do is be as useful to you as possible. And if you have questions, I hope you'll find me, and we're going to be doing the meetups as well. This is how you get in touch with me if you have a question and we don't have a chance to talk to one another. I do work with radio stations, and I do a lot of air checking. And again, one of the things about Asia, and I would like to say this so that you understand that I understand, that there are restrictions in what you can create as content. So what I wish for you and ask you is work within the confines of your structure and your rules to make the best, most creative, most fascinating radio that you can. Honor your listener. What's in this for the listener? It's never about what we have to give. It's what you, the listener, get. If I'm on the air and I say, I have 5 sets of tickets to give away, that's never as good as you have 5 chances to win. Turn your thinking around like a big ship. Instead of, I'm Valerie and I'll be talking with Richard Feidler, it becomes, if you'd like to meet one of the top interviewers in the world, that's coming up in about 5 minutes. You'll be meeting Richard Feidler. It's not, I'm going to interview, I'm going to play this next song. It's, you will hear. The more you have eye contact with the listener, but imagine each listener has a bucket, and you are putting chunks of solid gold into their bucket. And when they turn off the radio after listening to your station, they feel that they've gotten a bucket of gold, and they want to come back tomorrow, and they're going to tell their friends, okay? And they'll use social media to talk about it, and word of mouth is powerful. Take chances, lead, don't follow. Now, if you watch a stand-up comedian, maybe 30 jokes, maybe 3 work, but if you laugh, you had a great time. Don't be afraid to try things and fail. And it's very difficult in Asia because it's face, and you don't want to lose face, and you don't want to fail. But true creativity, I really encourage you, if you have ideas, if you're observing life and filtering life through your own experience and putting it back out for other people, I encourage you to take a risk. Because if it's authentic and you tell the truth, make it matter and never be boring, it will work. It never doesn't work. Truth rings true. It resonates with people. Oh yeah, you know, they connect to it. Remember your listeners, always. Always think listener. What's in this for my listener? How can I make a great experience for my listener? Focus on one thing at a time. That's really time management. With all the shiny objects, with all the internet that's going on, with all the busyness at a radio station, multitasking is overrated. Focus on one thing at a time, do it, and then get to the next thing. Don't do 10 things at once. If you were having surgery, you would not want your surgeon to multitask. You want that person who's cutting you open to be focusing on what's going on there, okay? And there's so much multitasking going on. It's taking away from making the art that is the storytelling and communication and the power of what we do. Finally, be a man or woman of your word. If you're promising the listeners something, deliver. If you're promising your staff something, deliver. And if you can't promise it, don't promise it. And don't be afraid of the word no. These are the powerful communicator principles. People say, oh, Valerie, you've been talking about this for years, because it works. If you do these things, you will get, keep, and grow audience no matter the platform. Speaking visually in terms your audience can picture, starting with your best material that you can't wait to talk about on the air, that you would talk about off air because you're excited about it and it's new. Tell the truth. Never be boring. Listen powerfully. The greatest broadcasters, while they are articulate, wonderful communicators, and they're always curious people, all of them, the great ones, are amazing, deep listeners. Always talk to one listener at a time. And in English, we're very lucky to have the word you. But really, it's about eye contact, one at a time, because this is a very personal medium. Each listener should feel you're talking to him or her personally. Do engaging transition and handoffs. And again, this goes into teases and trails, which are also really important for your social media. So whether you're on WeChat or Twitter or whatever social media you're using, these teases and trails can also be applied there. And again, if you can start it with the word you or what's in it for the listener, it's great. Humor is gold. Forced humor never works, but natural humor is golden, and knowing when to go with a funny moment. One of the differences between podcasting and live radio is live radio, anything goes. You know, you can just have fun, and it's very spontaneous. Mistakes happen, and great moments of humor can happen. When you're podcasting, make it perfect. You are pre-recording this. There is no excuse on a podcast. Your audio needs to be clean. You need to make it perfect as to what you want to say. And if anything goes too long, when in doubt, leave it out, cut, okay? So again, when you produce something for a podcast, it needs to be perfect. Anything live, anything goes. Promote authentically, promote other people's material, be who you are on the radio, and again, I encourage you to take risks. Again, this is how you can get in touch with me, and I'm going to go back and talk a little bit about Asia in particular. One of the things when I was listening to Magic here, and it was Magic 105, they did something that was so great in Kuala Lumpur, which is they talked about Light, which is the digital station, and what they did was they used Light and Magic as a driver for SIOC, which is their app, where they have lots of personality, lots of information, lots of features. And one of the great things about being at a radio station is that you actually can use the radio as a driver to drive people to your podcasts. One of the greatest shows we have in America, it's called This American Life, and it's got a lot of listeners to it. Their secret sauce of developing it as a podcast was to put the first episode on the radio. And it was like people heard the first episode, they got very excited about it, and then it was, okay, if you want to hear the rest of the episode, you've got to now go online and find us. It works together. And really, when you talk to listeners, they don't care if they're hearing it out of the fillings in their teeth, if it's good. They just want to hear it. And again, it's been discussed a lot, and you're going to hear so much about this over the next 2 days. The new technology, the new ways of distribution, the new ways listeners find us. But really, if you tell powerful stories, you're a powerful storyteller. You use visual language. You talk to one person at a time. You sound like you want to be there. One of the things that I always listen to when I'm going to hire people or recommend people for a radio station and when we're air checking is there anywhere else on planet Earth you'd rather be than on the radio right now? And if you don't sound like you love every minute of this and you're so glad to be there, it'll never work as well. Because again, you're not an actor playing the part of a broadcaster. You're there being a human being. Be here now. Make this the most important thing you do. The other thing about being human is you see how easily humans can be replaced by AI like that. So being human, being a little bit unpredictable, you know, being imperfect, and telling stories that matter to you and have meaning for you. These are the things that are important. The other thing that when I hire people, I always ask them, can they do multi-version? Can they tell me a story or a joke 3 different times, 3 different ways, and keep it interesting all those ways? Because often you're going to work with material that might not change day after day. And if you can't vary that story or tell it from different angles, you're going to be boring. And what I used to do when I worked in newsrooms was I actually would bring in a crystal prism and we would hang it up in the window. And what we would do is look at the rainbow that the sun would make on the wall. And then we would turn the crystal prism and it would be a completely different pattern. Same sun, same crystal, different rainbow. So again, if you can tell a story from different perspectives and talk about it with different angles, you can work with material that might not change day after day or week after week. Now, often when I do this kind of a talk, we love it to be interactive, but because of the time frame, as Frances said earlier, there's going to be meetups. And so if you have specific questions or email me, I'd really like to be as useful and as helpful to you as possible. I've worked with over 500 radio and television stations in 42 countries. And again, it's not because it's radio. It's because it's human beings connecting with other human beings. If you have ever felt alone all by yourself and felt lonely, and you took your finger and you pushed the button, and suddenly there's music, there's somebody telling you what's happening in your community, there's somebody who says something funny that makes you laugh, there's someone that touches your heart or your soul and lifts you in some way. That's the magic of radio. And radio is not like any other medium. Audio medium is special. We actually have better pictures than video because it's the imagination. I'll never forget one time, I was doing a producer workshop, and what we had to do was describe what it looked like. And we were a group of us out by the pool, and there were maybe 10 men with their shirts off, drinking beers out by the pool. And one of the producers described it after a beautiful woman in a bathing suit got onto the diving board and jumped into the water. He wrote the sentence, 12 middle-aged men sucking in their stomachs. He made a movie. If you listen to song lyrics, the writing is visual. If you listen to poetry, the writing is visual. Incorporate, be creative, be unique. Think of radio as an art form, just like any other art form that's out there. And when you go on the air or your staff goes on the air, make art. Make something that people go, shh, I want to hear this. Make fun, because life is hard. Life is a struggle. People have a hard time. And if the radio can lift you and the personality can take you on journeys, and most importantly, you are never alone. So again, if you are interested in these ideas, if you'd like to have a copy of the principles, I will email you the air check criteria that I use if you're working with talent, and this is the book. And what I'd like to say is, for Anders and Peter and James Cridland and everybody here, thank you so much for being here. It is my great honor to be with you today. So thank you.
Thank you.
Valerie, you talked about a bucket of gold. You've given us a bucket of gold. Thank you.
And I didn't thank Steve Ahern, so thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Valerie.
Thank you very much, Valerie. Valerie, if I'm not mistaken, everyone here gets a free copy of your book on their way home. Is that correct? Or no, not today. Valerie, Gary, thank you very much. We're going to take a quick coffee break, but when we come back, 11:30, I believe, is the time to be returned. We're going to split the rooms now. This is called the Track 1 room. We're also going to have the Track 2 room, just to let everyone know what's happening in the Track 1 room. Upon returning at 11:30 p.m., we have the Power of Disruption. We have Radio 360, the world's first hybrid measurement system. We've also got interactive car dashboards and new revenue streams. We're also going to be talking about the power of increased revenue by focusing on outcomes instead of output. That's happening here at Track 1, 11:30 a.m.
And in Track 2, which is the room next door, there will be the question of where are the women in radio? Andrea Ho will ask that question and help you answer it. Also in Track 2 at 11:30 next door, you'll hear about low-cost DAB from Nick Pickett and from Paul Amos. He will tell us what we can learn from radio's success in Australia. So that's Track 2, the next room from 11:30. In a moment we have a coffee break that will go till 11:30. When you get the signal, come back and choose here for Track 1, hosted continuing by Ryan, and Track 2 next door. Thank you very much. You know that the sessions are full of ideas. That's what Radio Days is all about. We have filled our cup, filled our bucket with great ideas this morning. There will be more coming up after the coffee break. Thank you.
By the way, give a big round of applause to all our speakers so far, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you back at 11:30 a.m.
Great work.